welcome back to our Study on Spotlight episode. And today we have Jonathan.
Very special guest.
Yes, from University of Bridge.
Thank
for the
you.
US universities, pathway programs. Are we talking about where should we start, to be honest?
Let's just start with talking about University Bridge. What is University Bridge?
Okay. University Bridge, when I mention University Bridge, people always think of bridges. In a way, that's what the function of University Bridge is. University Bridge is aiming to help students to navigate the very complicated US system, which, as many people know, getting into a US university for year one direct admissions is very, very, very competitive. Mm-hmm. When I say this, people perhaps don't realize how competitive it is, because it's not just great grades. You also need extracurricular activities. You need to do some of the more difficult essays that countries ask for, I would say. So University Bridge is a 2+2 program, mostly focused towards California, although we just launched a new program in Seattle with Shoreline, which includes high school completion. So we do the first 2 years of bachelor's degrees, and we help students to fulfill their dreams of getting into the University of California. So for many students, that means UCLA or UC Berkeley, but also UC Irvine, UC Davis, UC Santa Barbara, to name a few. There's so many US universities, I could name a lot of them, but that's just the main ones that students are aiming for.
But speaking of the competitiveness of getting into a US UC system, do you have the numbers of how exactly how competitive it is, really?
To give you an idea, like UCLA's application number, most recent data is about 145,000 students applied.
Wow.
Now, the UK UCAS system is not much bigger number than that. So that gives you an idea of the volume. In terms of success rate, for international students to UCLA and UC Berkeley, it's around 5%.
Wow.
Which is...
And I can't do my math here.
Yeah. And if you go for some majors, which everybody wants to go for, like computer science, you're looking at under 2%. So it's really, 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 really competitive. I mean, even, Californian students who resident in California, it's very competitive for them to get into UCLA, UC Berkeley. There was just a newspaper article that came out recently which stated how difficult it is, even for local residents, to be successful. And obviously in the US, if you're from within the state, they give priority because you come from the local system.
Okay. So is University Bridge mainly just to help international students and...
Yes, we mostly help international students, although we do have some students who have US green cards and US passport holders. We can help those as well. We do get quite a few students who have US green cards.
Right, okay.
So yeah, we mostly focus towards helping international students. But the interesting thing is, in recent years, more and more green card holders do need help.
Oh, okay.
Because they have a US green card, but maybe they still are not fully aware of the complications of the US system. Because the US system is kind of very broad and very exciting, gives people a lot of flexibility. Like, there are many high school students, if we all go back to when we were 17 or 18 years old, most of us didn't know what major we want to study. Most people were like, what would I like to study? We don't know. If you go to countries like the UK, you actually have to choose your major, basically. Whereas the US, you have some flexibility. You can go with an undeclared major. And year one in the US, you have some flexibility and choice of courses. You can kind of get a feel for what exactly you want and make sure you choose the right major, which I think is an advantage. I think if you look at it, it's very difficult to make that decision. And this gives you more opportunity to try more different things, with the first 2 years offering a lot of general education credits. So it's much better for students, because when they eventually start their major, they're ready for it and they know that's what they want to study. And that's what they'll focus on in years 3 and year 4. So what we're doing is providing students with a very convenient bridge, so they can actually then progress into very good universities, but they've got time to adapt to the US system too. And the advantage with going into a community college is that the class size is much smaller than in 4-year universities. There's a lot of things that are said about community colleges. They do offer, though, the transfer admissions guarantee in California, and Virginia, University of Virginia also has something similar in Virginia, where they would guarantee students a place subject to achieving a certain score. There are different requirements, which perhaps is too complicated to go into, but it does mean that students go on these programs, they know what they've got to achieve. They know what they need to go for. And I found that a lot of students, even those students who don't have, they sometimes have okay high school grades, but especially in Asia, it's very, very competitive.
Yes.
We've had students from Taiwan who are very good students, can't get in direct admissions because their high school grading system is quite tough. They go to the US system, they do quite well. That particular student went to UC Berkeley, for example. So there is kind of that kind of element there of having, we can build up the profile and make sure that students get what they need to be successful. And also build up the extracurricular as well, because with all due respect to many students in high school, especially in the last few years when we've had COVID, a lot of high school students haven't done much extracurricular activity. And for the US top universities, they do like to see an all-round person. So they do holistic admissions, which is not quite the same as just judging on grades. So it's a lot more complicated to get in a way. But it's also an opportunity for students who do have fantastic extracurricular to really highlight their abilities, because the GPA is important, but we have seen students even through our program who've got lower GPAs and still get into UCLA as against students with higher GPAs with less extracurricular. So it does play a very important part.
Right. So it's really good to have like UFI student having that 2 years transition from an Asian education system to be in the US. So it's completely different admission process and requirements that they're looking for. And especially as you mentioned about the extracurricular activities, I'm pretty much sure for the Asian families or students.
I mean, their mindset is like, I just need good grades to get into a good university.
Sacrifice that extracurricular.
I mean, in California, you do have the transfer admissions guarantee, but you still have to fulfill it. And many students, the nice thing with that is they've got very, very good offers like UC Irvine, UC Santa Barbara, UC Davis are three very good colleges that offer transfer admissions guarantee. And then UC Berkeley and UCLA are priority admissions. But once you get there, many students do dream higher, and they should do. But yeah, that's right. The mindset here is very much, especially in Hong Kong, is very much we've got to academically achieve. Extracurriculars part of the academics for many people. Many people go to maths classes after school. They do lots of academic things, STEM classes. But at the end of the day, all this helps, but I think you've got to sort of try and be an all-rounded person. This is kind of what they're looking for. This is why things like volunteering are great. Things like doing things for the community, sport, music, drama. The nice thing with the US is there is a balance there. Students have the opportunity to do a lot of things. I mean, you know, we have students who've done things they've never done before. They've joined cycling clubs, you know, people who never cycled before have joined cycling clubs. This kind of activity, that's great. It's great to see people finding something they're passionate about. And the same thing applies with lots of things. I think it's a great opportunity for people to find what they really want. And it's a shame to some extent if you go to university and don't really do something you really, really love. Because you have to study it. I meet lots of parents and ask the parents, oh, what does your son or daughter want to study? And they'll tell me, you know, accounting. And then the son or daughter will want to do art.
Of course.
It's a common conversation because people always think of the career first. The career is important, but having something you're passionate about also makes a difference, because everyone needs to remember at the end of the day, the student's the one who actually has to study the course, not the parents.
Speaking of the course, so if student really started with an undeclared major and maybe in the middle of the way they would decide to change their path, so is there anyone or anywhere that they can get guidance on how to choose the courses in order to get an easy transfer to university?
For University Bridge, we offer, and every student is allocated an elite advisor. The elite advisor is a graduate from a US top university. They've often been through the community college system themselves. They're very familiar. So we do spend a lot of time with students on major, on which colleges they want to transfer to, what their goal is. So we kind of work that through with the students a lot, and we spend the first semester especially, we do, you know, most students come to us with an idea. When they apply, they say engineering, they say business, they say what they're aiming for. We tend to explore that a bit the first semester, and then we try to put them on the pathway so that they have the right credits to transfer for that area. In the first year, there is more flexibility to change their mind, but we do get students who get into the second year and want to change their mind. That makes it more challenging, because to progress into a certain major, you need a certain number of credits. For example, if you want to do biology, you'll need a certain number of biology credits to transfer into that major. So we try to sort of work with that. There is some flexibility, but if students generally towards the end of in the first year, they need to come down in an area. If you come down in two areas that are similar, there's some overlap, like some of the different streams of engineering, it's not a big problem. It's more of a problem when people come down with something completely opposite to what they've been studying already, which does happen. But we do work with the families on that, and our role really is to make sure that students progress in 2 years into year 3 of a top university, and generally they do. Most students do. There's the odd exception sometimes where something happens, but generally, like students change their major in year 2, for example, that means they need extra time. But generally, most students finish in 2 years and they go into year 3, and that's very good because in community colleges, people think you can go there without any help. It's actually wrong, because very few students actually do progress through a community college in 2 years. Because you need that extra help, you need that one-on-one advice, support, planning, and you need to organize yourself. You need to book your classes on time. They open very early in the morning. It's like you have to. It's a whole different world. You know, there's a lot of choices in the US too. The choice makes it sometimes more difficult to navigate the system.
I mean, in terms of the way it's being taught, like, you know, studying in Hong Kong and studying in the US, is there any major differences that international students feel that, it's very different to how I used to learn?
It's very different because it's varied. I think with all due respect to the Hong Kong system is excellent in many ways, academically extremely rigorous. I think it's fair to say that Hong Kong maths, for example, is ahead of many, many countries, but in terms of sort of creativity, variety, different factors, it's perhaps not quite the same. And I think that in the US, what always strikes me is kind of the variety of tasks students have to do. And they're assessed in different ways. They're also assessed on class discussions. They have discussion boards. They're assessed on quizzes. They're assessed on essays. They're not just assessed on exams. So that for some students is quite a shock, because they might have a discussion board with a tutor. They might get a certain percentage of their, their score for that, and they think, they just ignore it. They just think it's a discussion board.
No.
And then
Everything counts.
Everything counts. Class contributions count for some professors. It just depends. And also, like, the great thing in the US, though, is you can get credits for lots of things people sometimes enjoy doing. Like, you can get 1 credit for gym.
Oh,
for going
really?
To the,
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, it's a part of a fitness regime.
Oh,
it's not
okay.
just going to the gym, like, when you
Oh,
feel
right.
but it is. But there's lots of things you can get credit for.
Yeah.
Lots of things that students actually enjoy doing, which is great. So the system is very varied, but sometimes... As I say, navigating it's a challenge for many students coming from here when the focus is very much on academics.
Yep, absolutely.
Especially the subject varieties as well in Hong Kong.
Yes.
I think most of the Hong Kong students are open to limited
choices
in Hong Kong. But when it comes to the US, are suddenly open to a lot of options that they might get lost.
Wouldn't that be overwhelming then for a student in a way, because they're not used to having so many choices? They just don't know which one's the right direction as well.
Or hesitate to challenge that something they haven't tried it before.
Yep, that's why our advisors are there. We are there as a neutral sounding board to try and help the students find the right direction, and we're also there to help the families, because I think sometimes the family expectation, the student expectation are a little bit different. We are there to find the best course for both parties. And our role is to also get the students into the best university they can manage. And I think generally the success rate is good, largely because when people follow the advice, the success rate is really, really good.
Of course.
There are some students who sometimes decide they have their own ideas, their own mind. I mean, if you come on the University Bridge program, the main advice I always have for students is work closely with your advisor and follow their advice. Because they've done this before. They're mostly graduates from top universities like UCLA. They've had lots of experience with many different students, so they have a very good understanding. A good example of someone not following advice in the last few years was a student from Southeast Asia, not from Hong Kong. He decided not to do the extra physics class. He said, it doesn't matter. And of course, his advisor told him, if you want to go to Berkeley, you need to do that. He didn't do it, didn't get into Berkeley, but he did get into UCLA.
Oh, okay.
So he's still very successful, but it would have been more successful if he'd followed the advice. And afterwards he was like, oh, maybe I should have done that.
A bit late now.
But yeah, that's what I would say. I think trust. Trust in the system, trust the advisors, because they are experts. That's what they're there for. And that's why, because community colleges are great because the class size is small, the professors are very friendly, there's lots of plus sides. Probably the toughest thing in a way is that a lot of the students are local students.
Absolutely.
You know, because a lot of US students are now going through the community college system as well.
Yes.
Because again, it's so tough. I said the percentages earlier.
Of course.
It's even US domestic students can't get into those top universities. There's only a limited number of places. And the US in the world rankings is always very highly ranked universities.
Yes.
So they're competitive. Everyone wants to go there. So
I
it's
think
huge competition.
I think like from international students or even parents, their perspective is like community college is only for those who are bad academically. I don't think that's the case though, right?
No, it's not the case. I mean, you know, I was looking at an article recently from a newspaper in San Francisco, and it was saying that 1 in 3 US students now go to community colleges because the parents want to save costs for the first 2 years. So those 1 in 3 students are not necessarily bad students. They there's also cases when students don't know where they want to go. I'll be honest, because they don't want to commit to a 4-year university. They think the community college is a 2+2. You have to transfer.
Yep.
And some people like that. They like the variety, they like the flexibility, and they also want to explore.
Yep.
Right.
And colleges like Santa Monica have an outstanding range of courses. They have so many courses. I mean, you know, if you want to learn about astronomy, you can learn about astronomy. There's so many courses. And that's what's great. You can explore. And you're not under so much pressure immediately. I think in 4-year universities you do have to maintain a minimum GPA to get into your major still. People forget that there's no through train. You've still got to get the minimum requirements to get into your major. You know, there's many students who want to go into engineering. They don't get the grades that are required at the end of year 2 in their university. They can't go in. And there's many people forget that US bachelor's degrees, especially STEM majors, doing it in 4 years is quite tough. Many US students take 5 years, which is too long, because you need to try and do it in 4 years, because then you can work afterwards. Then you can start, you know, earning the money back again. From US top universities, graduate starting salaries are much, much better than most countries.
Okay. I mean, you work with a lot of community colleges. Do you mind naming a few, and maybe like for each community college, is there like 1 or 2 programs that are more outstanding for each of them that you would recommend?
Sure. University Bridge works with 6 community colleges. So we've got Piedmont, Virginia Community College, which is famous mostly for the partnership with the University of Virginia. So they have a guaranteed route that way, in that direction. I mean, in general, they are excellent at the traditional academic subjects. That would be history. I mean, law in the US is postgraduate, by the way, but that's another area. I'd say business and the sciences are also very good there. But they're definitely, University of Virginia is one of the US best universities, and it's actually quite under the radar of most international students. Their percentage of international students is quite low. So it's an opportunity to apply for people looking for a top university. Then if we move over to the other side of the US, in Seattle, we've got a partnership with Shoreline. That is a high school completion and credits you can do simultaneously. There's different options. The advantage of that is it saves you time and money. So it's a quicker route, and they have a very good, a lot of students do go to University of Washington. There's not a guarantee to that one. There is a guarantee to UC Riverside and University of Oregon. So that one is good because you can go at 16. You could potentially have 2 years credits by 18, and then by 20 you could have graduated.
So meaning for Hong Kong students, they then go after completing Form 5?
Yep, or Form 4 if they're old enough, but the minimum age is 16, unfortunately. So it's US Year 9 or equivalent is the minimum you need. But most Hong Kong students probably do that after Form 5. But that's a great option for students. And they offer, a range of majors. But it tends to be, Seattle's quite a famous hub for business. You've got a lot of big companies with major hubs there like Starbucks, Microsoft, Boeing, just to name a few. And then we move over to California. University Bridge works with 4 colleges in California. I would try and give a bit of differentiation between each one. the environment's very different. That's the first thing I would say. I mean, we've got worked with two colleges in the San Francisco Bay Area. We've got the College of Marin and College of San Mateo. San Mateo is in the middle of Silicon Valley. So quite obviously it's good for IT, computer science, engineering, entrepreneurs, people looking for startups. College of Marin is in Marin County. It's a lovely place. It's the middle of a country park. That is very good at the creative subjects, so art, music. And then if we move over towards Los Angeles, we have Santa Monica College, which is obviously famous. Those people who watched the Barbie movie will know. Santa Monica College is very famous for lots of things. It's close to Hollywood. It's got the glamour. You know, people forget with California, there's a lot of business there. It's finance, business, engineering, health-related majors. In the US, again, medicine is a postgraduate subject, but many people go in those sort of areas. So I would say Santa Monica is good for creative industries too, because obviously you've got Hollywood nearby. And then you've got the absolutely beautiful campus of Irvine Valley College, which is linked up quite closely with UC Irvine. This is a magnificent place to study because it's one of the few places I've been to where everywhere's near a park. Everywhere's green. So it's green, it's lush. It's slightly more peaceful than Santa Monica. Santa Monica's much busier. I would say, again, they're outstanding in engineering, sciences, business. UC Irvine's also developing a very good reputation in education and other majors like that. So in the US, a lot of colleges do cover a big range. So yeah, I would say, you know, yeah, Irvine is definitely a good place if you're looking to progress into UC Irvine as well. In a way, which college you choose also partly depends on which university you're looking for. So UCLA would be more Santa Monica because they're close together geographically. Irvine Valley College would be UC Irvine. San Mateo can lead you into Berkeley. San Mateo and College of Marin could be UC Berkeley or the Northern California schools, really. But it is very tough to get into UC Berkeley and UCLA. Those are the ones many people want. So, yeah.
Okay. I mean, in the end, you know, going overseas studies, especially nowadays, you know, a lot of parents do want to go, and they're always comparing not just, you know, within a country, but country to country, US, UK, Australia, Canada. From your perspective, why do you think parents would want to go to the US other than other countries?
I mean, if you look at it in the cold light of day, we all look at, everyone likes to look at data and figures. Graduate starting salaries is one very simple reason. If you look at it, a simple analysis, what does a graduate from UCLA, UC Berkeley earn? The average starting salary is around $80,000 a year. UK, Australia, with all due respect, I don't think most of their graduates earn anything in that kind of range. That's the average. I mean, there are many students in the US who finish STEM majors who do. I know some who graduate from University of Southern California as an example. They're making $150,000 a year. So that's one key selling point. I think the US has opportunities, diversity, and it does have a huge range of courses. I don't think any other country has that range of universities and courses. That's just a fact. It has kind of lots of options, lots of opportunity, and many people do. When I asked some students recently, why do you want to go to the US? I have the American dream is what many people keep saying to me. Obviously, I grew up in the UK. I'm from London. I've traveled a lot to the US, but I think people do have that. People are inspired by the Hollywood movies, by other things, but also many parents take a practical approach that actually, you know, if you do work in the US, you will have opportunities. There are definitely, it's got a very big economy. Whereas I think, you know, and also it's highly respected. If you come back with a degree, you could work in Hong Kong, you could work in Singapore with a top US degree. It is very highly respected.
100%. I mean, do you think most students, international students, when they graduate, they tend to stay in the US to look for opportunities, or do you think a lot of them just go back to?
Many want to. The last few years have been slightly funny times with the situation with COVID. I mean, if you look at it, many students do stay.
Especially with the OTP.
Yeah, especially with the OPT, that's right. And obviously the election comes every 4 years and people are uncertain about what's going to happen. When Donald Trump said to me, green cards for all students, and then his team quickly retracted on it. I think with the US, students will continue to choose it because, regardless in a way. And it's kind of like, it comes down to some students go to the US, even though they're more logically affiliated with the Australian or the UK system, because the US offers them flexibility and choice. And also, there is a lot of universities to choose from there.
Yep.
And as I said before, I think for parents' point of view, they can rest assured when they see the graduate starting salaries that the return on investment will be good. And that's very important, because I was reading a book a while ago by Richard Branson, and he talked about how university degrees are too long. He obviously never went to university. He's a fantastically successful entrepreneur, and people do think they can be like that, but that's 1 in a million people. Most people are not going to be that successful without some formal background. And I think for most people, a degree is the basis of their working career later. They need that education. And education is also something where, regardless of money and everything else, it's something people can never take away from you. They're given you that opportunity. And it's made a big difference to many people. If you look at the progress many countries have made in the last few years, it's fantastic. It's partly because of education. Someone like China's now got a highly educated population now. They've come a long way. And that education has played a key role in that. Many students from China have been overseas to study and shared that experience, and now they've got wonderful infrastructure and amazing cities. It's an incredible place now.
I mean, one thing on searching opportunities is, of course, international students might want to stay there, but would it be hard for international students to find a career if they're in the US?
I mean, it's never easy in most places, but I think in the US, many students choose STEM for that reason, because they want their career in the US afterwards. There obviously is, special OPT for that. But, University Bridge employs different people in the US. We have got some of our advisors who were international students before, who went through
the whole process,
US immigration and got the green card and got the citizenship. It is possible. But with the US system, they won't treat any nationality above the others. They have recently been quite generous to students from Myanmar and Ukraine. They've given a lot of those students green cards, which they do have that kind of policy. But they, in general, it's quite competitive for everyone. I'm British, and people assume I can move to the US tomorrow. It doesn't work that way for me either. I'd have to go through the system too. So I always say the system is designed so they get the right people in there. And it's quite interesting that, many students do successfully stay and build their careers there, build their lives there, because I think all countries want quality migration. This is something everybody wants and everybody's fighting for. And it's the nice thing is that, students it is possible, but it's not like when there is routes that are open, people get all excited. Australia's had them, Canada's had them, the UK's had them, and then they change them. And they can change, that's the thing. But the US is pretty consistent. It has OPT, it has it set up in a certain way. And a lot of students do successfully stay. It is possible, and it is a big country. There is a lot of opportunity, probably more than other places.
Absolutely. I mean, it's kind of like a big shift in topic, but you did mention, there's a new program, the high school program as well. Can we talk a little bit more about that as well?
So University Bridge before just offered a standard 2+2 program. We didn't offer high school completion, but then we realized that there's quite a lot of students who are 16 who would like to do high school completion and also college credits. A lot of students now want to save time, to be honest, and money. People are desperate to start as early as possible, which is absolutely fine. So we decided to partner with Shoreline in Seattle and open a new program, which is high school completion and credits at the same time. So it's a 2+2 program. The nice thing about this is it's possible to do 2 years, and after the 2 years, get 2 years of college credits and also get a high school completion or high school diploma. Or you could also do GED if you wanted to. There's different options for students. And the reason why is some students in their home country don't want to finish high school. That's one reason. And some students need a high school diploma sometimes to work in the government in their particular country, for example, or some companies insist on it. I would say it's quite interesting. high school completion is quite a nice thing extra for people to have, because then they've got that as well. Got a US high school diploma, and they've also got an associate degree, so they can, after the associate degree, it's quite flexible for students. They can work for a year if they want to. They could do the OPT, or most students would carry on and do year 3 and year 4 and complete their bachelor's degrees. So the thinking behind opening a high school program was to try to open up a route for students who are slightly younger to go into the US. And also we've chosen the area deliberately for safety, because it's outside the city centre, it's in the suburbs, it's a nice safe area. And we've also chosen somewhere which has got an excellent academic reputation, so the students do extremely well, and they have an extremely supportive international team there. That's also very important, I think. You know, California for many people is the dream, but Seattle's a great choice for a younger student. It's a great choice for your first 2 years, because after those 2 years, many students do apply for University of California. That would be a popular choice. And obviously, if you go on the program with University Bridge and Shoreline, you could actually get the offer from UC Riverside, subject to a certain GPA. So that's quite nice too.
Yeah.
So you have the best of both worlds in a way. 2 years in Seattle, 2 years in California. It sounds good.
Of course.
But if students doing the high school diploma alongside with the uni credits program, would they struggle a lot, like handling both curricula at the same
More
time?
workload, you mean? Like,
No, is a short answer. What happens is, it would depend on the student, obviously. There are minimum requirements on English to ensure that English is not an issue. There's a minimum IELTS writing requirement, for example. And we will assess the students quite carefully. You know, if you come from the system in Hong Kong and you go into this system, it will be, perhaps a bit of a shock at first, some things. But there is a maths placement test and English placement test when you arrive.
Right.
So we do make sure that they're put in the right courses to begin with. And it's not, you know, it's not going to be sort of a complete walk in the park. You still have to get the grades, you still have to do the classes, you have to do the work. Everyone has to do the work, but it's not impossible to do very well, because in terms of class load, normally students would end up doing, you know, a certain load of classes, but they'd actually have free time to do sport and other activities too. I think somewhere like a lot of countries are quite pushed because the university places are limited. But in the US, there's a lot of places you can progress to. So you've got a bit more time to kind of develop extracurricular and also explore what you want to do. It's not, from what I can see, most students do pretty well, especially from Hong Kong. I think they do exceptionally well. In fact, so well that sometimes family relatives are really surprised. They're like, wow. They can't quite believe the report and the grades, and that's lovely to see. But they're genuinely shocked. I mean, I've got a student moment from Hong Kong who's got a 4.0 GPA in California.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
I got him to do a webinar with me a while ago, and I asked him what his secret was. He does the basics well. He's well organised and he's well disciplined. And it's not, you know, sometimes we feel we need to study more. Sometimes effective studying is less is more. It's all about that kind of thing. So that's something that students can learn. And the nice thing is, in the US system as well, it's a different relationship with your teachers. It's a different classroom dynamic. It's much more, you know, I think here, even at young age, I see students going to school, including my daughter, with very heavy rucksacks, bags and bags of books. They're under a lot of pressure. They've got dictation in Chinese, dictation in English. We know all of this. And it's not easy. And I think that the system is different in that way. There's more time for developing and consideration. Sort of, there's more kind of discussion. There's a lot more flexibility in a way. I mean, here there's nowhere better in certain subjects, though. I think, you know, a lot of Asian countries have excellent systems. It's just a different way of doing things slightly.
Of course.
And you know, many students love it. Many students love the art classes, love the other classes. Some students even love the history classes. they find them completely different. One of the students was telling me the other day, wow, it's so different. It wasn't what I was expecting at all.
Okay, interesting. So before we wrap things up, is there one final message that you want to tell to the audience or to parents and students?
Sure. I would say to everybody, consider the US as a great study option for its flexibility. Don't get put off by a lot of headlines that go on. Don't get lost in the noise. The US does have a lot to offer. It's got flexibility. It's got some of the best universities. And if you go through a program like University Bridge, it does offer you that chance to get into a really, really, really good university. And it's definitely worth it because, you know, your life later, working career, does actually depend a lot on where you graduate from. And I think, you know, colleges like UCLA, UC Berkeley are fantastic. If you have a chance to try and get in for those, that's what you should be aiming for. And I think for many students, they don't know what major they want, so the US fits them quite well, actually. And for places like students who do, you know, a year of university in their home country, for example, like in Hong Kong sometimes, and then want to go overseas, they can still do it. We still look at transferring some of the credits. I haven't said anything about credit transfer, but that's something that's also possible. So there's quite a lot of flexibility in the system there. And I think, you know, just consider it as a great opportunity. It's one of the places people should definitely consider. Also, I would encourage everyone to go and explore and visit if they can.
Yep.
Before making a decision on overseas study, one of the things people should always consider doing is kind of, you know, basically visiting and making the decision, because that does make a difference. People who visit have a better idea.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for your time today, Jonathan. And to the audience, if you have any questions about University Bridge or education, feel free to reach out to Jonathan or to us at Dadi, and get to see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much again.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.